Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting, special meeting of the University Heights City Council to order. Today is Thursday, November 19, 2020. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Blankfeld?
Here.
I had to switch that off. Since they switched my computer, all of my old settings are gone. Mrs. Berry?
Here.
Mrs. Pardee?
Here.
Mrs. Weiss?
Here.
Mr. Ertl? Mr. Rock?
Here.
Mr. Gould?
Is there a motion to excuse Mr. Ertl and Mr. Gould?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Blankfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Okay, very good. We have one item on the agenda this evening. Thank you all for being here. It is a motion to approve quote from Starfish in the amount of $9,177 for firewalls and access points. We have here this evening to present Patrick Hanrahan and Adam Walker of Starfish. I would give them the floor to present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time here. I know on such short notice, this was a little bit of a time crunch, but obviously it's an issue that we wanted to make sure that we were able to communicate effectively so everybody understood what was going on. So there are a couple of different aspects and elements to the quote and the situation that are going on right now. So we're going to try our best to explain everything from a high level view, and Adam, who's the technical resource that's on this call here, is going to get a little bit more in depth a little bit later on. But if at any point in time we say something that doesn't make sense, someone's confused, just need a little bit of clarification, please stop us. We would much rather stop and explain at that point as opposed to going all the way through and then having to try and backtrack. So I'm not certain if everybody has a copy of the quote and the report that was sent over. Is that available to everyone? It looks like on the page with the documents there. I just want to make sure that everybody has that because we'll reference that a little bit. So the first thing that seemed to be a question was, how do firewalls relate to the VPN and how do they relate to the PCI compliance? So I'm going to back up from that even a little bit and first explain the audit that came over. So the audit report that is one of the attachments was provided to us from Dennis Kennedy from the City Hall office. And what we really wanted to focus on is on page, I believe, well, page 10, I believe it is that there are issues related to the firewall. So what ultimately the firewall does is acts kind of like a bodyguard for your network. So when you are not in the office and you have to remote in order to gain access to files, to gain access to the server, to more or less make it feel like you are currently operating within your current desk or your office, but from home, you are connecting directly to the firewall. So when a couple individuals asked earlier, how does the firewall interact with the VPN? They are directly hand in hand. So what we wanted to do is go through really two scenarios that we can offer assistance with and the ability to solve the VPN issue. Because the experience that we have seen is that the VPN is faded in and out. And obviously with the scare that COVID has provided and the increased numbers in regards to new positive cases, there's a very real chance that we're going to be working from home again. I know Cuyahoga County has spiked quite a bit. So I guess for starters, what we'll do is, Adam, I'll turn over to you here to kind of explain what really the firewall is. And then from there, we can explain a couple options that we have available and how we would like to proceed.
Sure, thank you. So the firewall, it's the gatekeeper for the network. When you're in the building, you're protected by the firewall. When you are at home, you're connecting to that firewall for all your remote services, all your remote access needs. So when you VPN in, you're not VPNing into the network, you're VPNing directly to that firewall. That also has all the security that the PCI audit scans run against that firewall to see if your network is secure from outside intrusions. As Patrick mentioned, that's where the genesis of this originally started, with Dennis receiving that report of there are some failed items in there that cannot in the current state of your firewalls be resolved. And some work in one fashion or other will have to be done to get that to a passing level. Combine that with the recent issue where the VPN authentication was not working, preventing users from connecting and working remotely effectively. That's where we got to this quote of, it makes sense to get something that's current and supported, that has a serious focus on security needs, and has the throughput to really manage, everybody working remote to avoid any potential problems down the road. Patrick, did I miss anything that we want to touch on with that? Because the failure of the audit, I can get into in more detail if everybody would like me to. It gets a little technical, but basically there's no, your current firewalls are not supported by the manufacturer. They are subscription and warranty has lapsed. So I cannot get updated firmware that patches exploits that are known for your model firewall. You very specifically have one failing item that says that the current operating system on the firewall is the problem and needs to be updated. You have a couple other items, using old cryptography. It has to be upgraded to the latest and greatest version as the recommendation to get a passing score, and things of those nature. As far as the VPN issue that we're experiencing, Mr. Mayor has mentioned to you, without having vendor support on it, when something fails, it is unfortunately best effort. We were able to resolve the issue this time. What if something else fails? What if you have a hardware failure? There's no support to do anything with that. And then you would have to approve new firewalls that do have support, that do have warranty on them. You'd have to get them in there. And how long does that mean downtime for everybody? Or what do you put in there temporarily that is maybe a different model that isn't quite as security focused, but was more readily available? And that's where we're at tonight to have this meeting to discuss that quote. Patrick, I think I hit on those. Did you want to go over the next steps?
Yeah, so there are two pretty distinct options that we can explore. So like Adam had mentioned, right now you have two firewalls, one at the main location, one in the annex. Both are currently running without any sort of subscription-based program. That lapsed back in May of 2019. So we have spoken with the vendor about getting back under coverage, what that would take and what that would cost. And we're waiting on a final quote, but they got us about 75 to 80% of it. So the first thing that happens is we would have to reinstate the missed lapse period of service. So since it expired in mid-May of 2019, and they do 1-year subscriptions, we would first have to pay for May of 2019 to May of 2020. And then we would be purchasing a subscription from May of 2020 to May of 2021. So we would have to do that for both units. For the coverage that we would need, it looks like that cost by itself would be about $1,800. With that, if you're looking at the quote that we provided, the bottom line item of all three categories would still be in play because it would still need to be downloaded, configured, set up accordingly to make sure that we meet both PCI and the PCI compliance, and also make sure that we resolve the VPN issue.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
Maybe I misunderstood you. So they would require us to pay for a year and a half that we weren't using their service?
That is 100% correct. I know it sounds
Okay.
crazy in that sense.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
Their explanation is that you should not have let service lapse because you're in theory just paying for the time that you absolutely need something, and to them you should be paying for coverage the entire period.
Well, that's ridiculous.
I agree with you, and unfortunately it's kind of a common practice in that industry.
Highway robbery is what it is.
Oh, well,
Wow.
tomato,
All
tomato.
right. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay, go ahead.
So that is one option that we could explore.
Okay, I also have one question.
Yes.
So you said we need one for the main building and one for the annex. So is the building department not on there? Because are they considered?
I'm sorry, I could answer that. I know where you're going. The building department consider that to be more of a local connection to the main building. They are connected via some of the wires that are directly run from building A to building B to get them connected. So they don't have, they're not joined to the network in the same way the annex is, where it's across the street and there's a site-to-site VPN, similar to how your computer's VPN in, but that firewall VPNs to the other one so that the two networks can act as one. So if we switch it on one side, the other side should be switched to being the same standard level so that we don't have any connectivity issues.
And there's no way to wirelessly not have to purchase a second one for the annex.
I could technically say there is a way. It would be more money to set up a point-to-point wireless. If that's something that you'd like to do, that would eliminate internet needs over there. But I would recommend then you would increase the speed at the main office, and now you're on one internet connection. Having that annex is kind of a nice backup spot to go work it. You know, with how close it is, it does have its own dedicated internet. A point-to-point wireless solution tends to cost more than this entire quote would to get something reliable that'll stand the test of time.
Okay, thank you.
So the first option, again, that what we can do is we can get it back under coverage for the current model that you have with the vendor that obviously created this firewall, and it could be supported until May. The only hangup with that is we cannot get into your current firewall that's in the annex without vendor support as it is, just because we do not have passwords to the old model that's in there. So what we would first do is we would get them caught up on subscription levels. We would then reach out to the vendor, have them reset that firewall more or less entirely, give us the credentials to get in, and then we would be able to start doing work to get everything updated, to get everything configured, to hopefully get into a place where we would be covered. I say hopefully because Adam and I can't sit here and say with 100% certainty that where you need to be as far as PCI compliance and VPN issues going away, that we will be able to completely have that resolved. We're just not 100% certain with that model and this plan of coverage that could be done. So that leads us to the second quote. And this is the one that we provided, and I'll walk through this here. WatchGuard is the brand that is used by your police station. So they currently have WatchGuard firewalls in their police station right now. Not the same model, because they have a little bit of a more robust system. You'd be overpaying for what you need in that sense. But they currently utilize WatchGuard systems. So what we have on this quote is a WatchGuard to replace the unit at the main office, as well as the annex, and what is called a high availability unit, which is line item 2 in general. What that high availability unit does is provides a backup to your main office location. So should you have a failure of any sort, your firewall will be picked up by the traffic will be picked up by the second unit, and you will just continue to remain online as if you did not have any issues in the first place. Think of it as like a built-in backup generator, if you will. So,
and Pat, I'm sorry. I don't mean to derail you, Pat. I do want to point out the reason that we really recommend that high availability, that cost is pretty minimal because it's just a backup to the licensing that you're putting on the main unit. But think of the firewall, like I said, it is that gatekeeper to the network. If that firewall fails for any reason and cannot be restored, then mail will not flow. Everybody's mail that they're using when they're out about, all that comes to a halt until a new firewall is put into place. Having the high availability, it'll switch over automatically on its own, and everything will keep working as it was.
So then the second part, we would get the firewall and the annex figured out. And then the bottom portion, which is wireless access points, came up as well. You have 6 access points throughout the facilities, 2 of which are directly connected to the firewalls that are in place now. So if we are to change out those firewalls, we would have to change out at least 2 of those access points. We put all 6 on here just because it works much better when it is one cohesive unit, but we could kind of patchwork it a little bit if that's what we're looking to do. And I mention that because obviously I know that there's an RFP that just was released. So if we are looking to bridge the gap between what can we do right now, this moment, to get us to, let's say, January, where we're going to bring in a new vendor and then entertain a new solution, we can absolutely patchwork it and make sure it's functional and get the bare minimum that we need and go from there. The solution that we provided is more of the lines of what your police station has, where they are secure, they're good to go, they have no issues at all, they're humming along. So we're more than happy to explain how we would do each way. I mean, more or less, if we were to get the coverage extended from what you have now, you would have to revisit this issue in April to discuss, do you want to stay on the hardware you're on? Do you want to renew even further with subscription? It's just going to come up again. This really just buys us some time, as opposed to if you wanted to knock out the solution entirely. So that is the main difference between the two.
So the patchwork, as you call it, that would say, for example, you use say to January, is that less secure?
That is,
I mean, I
Yep.
don't think you would
Sure.
want to, I don't think you would provide us with anything that wasn't absolutely
Correct.
secure. But the
Correct.
way you phrased it as compared to doing the whole kit and caboodle made me wonder.
Sure. I believe I can answer your question. For what you're asking. Let me try,
Okay.
and if I don't, just let me know.
Okay,
So our solution, we see a problem with the firewalls you have. We see a problem with the wireless network you have. Being that some of the access points are controlled, they're using the firewall kind of as the brains of the unit. If I replace those, I have to at least replace those 2 access points. It's already a bit of a mix match of how the wireless is set up.
correct.
For the cost of 4 more units, we can make it one nice network, easier to manage, better reliability for everybody. That made sense. So that's one of the things that we're calling more the total solution to it. Having
Okay.
the high availability, all that stuff, versus when Patrick says patchwork, we're going to upgrade the current firewalls, the Fortinets with their latest OS that's supported. We're going to turn on what features can be turned on with it. But WatchGuard is a more security focused solution, so they have more security features. We'll set it up to the best of our abilities to meet the PCI compliance and to the limitations of the security package with those Fortinets. The over-under is we could do all that, and you're probably at least half the cost into it, and then come, was it April or May when it expires again, that you'd have to spend probably another $1,000 to extend it for a year from there. And now it doesn't make sense. Are we spending money on something that we don't even want to keep, or do we want to spend a little bit more and have a done solution that will be good for 12 months and should be very reliable and appropriate no matter who comes in to manage the network later?
Okay, and should it be another vendor that were to come in, if we were to do the whole kit and caboodle, would that be something that another vendor could possibly tell us we need something else? Or
Sure, it's
I mean, you see where I'm going.
Yeah,
You see where I'm
I
going?
absolutely do. Everybody has their preferences. There's no doubt there. I would be hard pressed to have somebody come in and tell you, oh, this isn't good enough. You need to have
Okay.
this. If they suggest something else, it may just be because they have a preference to it. I'm not saying that the Fortinets aren't, okay units. I'm saying that I feel from our experience and what we have out there that the WatchGuards do have better security features, but I can make the Fortinets work too. But
And
it
they would
doesn't-
be secure.
correct. They would be
Okay.
they would be secure. I would
Okay.
have more security with the WatchGuard, but you would still be secure. It's not like it's going to be a wide open floodgate.
Okay,
So that's the difference between the 9,000 and the 13,000?
Those 2 quotes, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the 13,000. Pat, correct me if I'm wrong. That was for a 3-year.
Correct. The difference
Does-
between 9 and 13 was the standard for WatchGuard is a 3-year subscription. So if we were to move forward with that, under that quote, you wouldn't have to worry about this again until 2023. We were able to have that reduced to 1-year subscriptions. So we could cross that bridge, save up front, and then revisit this in 12 months if that's something you wanted to do.
And then, okay, and then the patchwork is different than the $9,000 quote? I'm just trying to find the document.
We don't
Sure.
have that document to share just
Oh,
because we've
okay.
been going back and forth with the vendor all day today and yesterday trying to get that. As far as them to provide us an actual quote, and they've had to go back and backdate things and do all their due diligence. So they've got us about 80% of the numbers, and it kind of looks like, here's what our rough spreadsheet and everything looks like. They gave us what should be a formalized quote for the coverage period time of May 2020 to 2021, but that was for just one unit, and then they still had to work on the back date. So what they showed us is that it would probably be about $1,800 to $1,900 for the subscription extension there.
Okay, so how much lower would the patchwork be from the $9,000 approximately? And I know it's not, finished.
It'll be about half, because the labor is still going to be the same no matter which solution we do. We have to go and fix the underlying problems. It's just, am I fixing it and deploying the new solution in the same swoop, or am I getting the old solution reworked to meet the needs? So the
Now, the
labor
old
is going to be about the same.
The old solution, you're still not sure about the PCI compliance.
I am not 100% sure. I would
You
would lean towards
the watch guards, you would be.
yes.
But PCI compliance, I mean, that's only a few $100s. You can get a separate PCI compliance. I don't know what the word of it is, approval for, it's not gonna be thousands of dollars.
Well, we use the PCI compliance as kind of that gauge of, well, if they're able to see that these are exploitable things, everybody else on the internet is able to see those are exploitable things. So you could bypass it, but you still have a potential problem, a risk to your network.
Okay. Was there
And
any other?
can you make the passing the PCI compliance a part of the new contract with that vendor? Meaning, can they guarantee that for the $1,500, their software will pass, their hardware and software will pass the PCI examination?
I don't know that they will do a guarantee. I can certainly reach out to a couple of our reps and share with them, with your approval, the failing sections of your PCI report and verify that there is no issue in resolving it. But from our pre-work on it, I've already checked each box and there should be no reason it doesn't pass. But we could absolutely get you something a little bit more formal direct from the vendor.
And just going back to your line items, which items are the labor that doesn't change?
That would be basically all the line items. And so there's there's labor for each location firewall, and there's labor for the wireless access points. Now, I would say the wireless access points will probably come down a little bit.
Why do the wireless access points need to change if the firewalls aren't changing? Because
there's a good odd that if the firewalls have been out of support since 2019, that we will also need to go through and update the OS on the access points so they can be controlled by the firewalls once we update the firewalls. It very well could be that they're up to date and they just work naturally. I don't know that for fact until we get into them and do it. So that could drop off entirely.
So which portions of the 3 hours is installation and implementation, and what's configuration? Because we're talking about configuration rather than installation and implementation, correct?
Correct. And to probably our own problem on the quote, that's more the same line item for getting everything fixed, implemented. We see that would be a total of 6 hours, such as we have to go through, set it up, and then work on each item, and then rerun the PCI compliance, and then respond to it, by fixing anything else that may or may not come up. I don't know that I could give a direct breakdown of those, 3 titles to the 6 hours.
Okay, and how long do you think you would need in order to better understand or get the full official quote from them?
Pat, I don't know if they got back to you or if that's a
I've
tomorrow
not
thing.
received anything back yet. I mean, we've been staying on them pretty good over the past 48 hours. I would hope that they could get everything to me by the end of the day tomorrow, but I can't promise it because I don't control that process.
I guess just one of my concerns generally is that first I want to make sure that we have the VPN issues settled for the city. That's important to me. And I want to make sure that we're able to work productively. But I know that that Councilwoman Pardee and the Tech Advisory Committee have been working diligently on a process to really evaluate the hardware across our infrastructure. And part of the philosophy that we as a council have kind of taken around that is that, and no fault of your own, no fault of Starfish, not at all, before you came along, time and time again, we've had really impressive technology people come in and tell us that this is the piece of software or hardware that you need, and this is going to fix all of your issues. And then the next person that comes along tells us, oh man, that $13,000 y'all spent, well, that was on trash. No, now you need this other $10,000 thing. And then we thought to ourselves, well, we have an ordinance here that tells us that we need a tech advisory committee. We have some amazing people on that committee that are helping us in this work. And before we expend another $10, $20, $30,000 in our infrastructure here, that we were going to listen to those people, we were going to have the evaluation that they told us that we needed done, and we were going to implement the recommendation they need, that they suggested that we need across our entire infrastructure. So that if it's, hey, Watchdog way to go, and it works with your police station, then what we're going to do. And if it's like, hey, listen, the police station is going to need an upgrade away from Watchdog in 2 years in order to become compliant with, regulations, why don't you just work hand in hand? And we're going to go that way. But have concerns with dropping another full $10,000 or that when for another haven't had that evaluation done if there is a less expensive route. So I'd like to hear what the final quote is from them on the solution that uses our current infrastructure.
Absolutely. I would think because Patrick has almost all of it, we should have it tomorrow or Monday at the very latest. I'll work with Patrick, make sure we turn that around and get that to everybody as soon as possible. And we'll let the mayor know if it's going to be expecting it tomorrow or if it'll be Monday. That way you guys can be appraised of when to be on the lookout for it, right?
I know that you did whatever corrections that you did. Are you, I mean, while of course something new could come up, was there anything that you saw today that would lead you to believe that the system is on the verge of crashing over the weekend?
The fact that there wasn't really a great solution for the VPN problem. It was more like having to remove and re-add the same exact function back, and it started to work. That's of concern. I don't know about crashing over the weekend, but it does give me some concern to let that keep going without vendor support for more than a week or so, to be honest with you.
I would also like to add that I myself still don't have VPN access. My computer is still not working. If I wake up tomorrow with COVID symptoms and have to work from home, I can't.
So just to summarize, the quote that you are waiting for is that patchwork quote that you mentioned, correct?
Correct.
And that would be, you feel at most $5,000?
That's my current educated assumption guess, if you will. I don't have the ability to quote their hardware. It's directly quoted from the manufacturer, so I just pass that along. So that's from what they've told me so far. That's the number that I would say is my best estimate.
And that's with the 1 year subscription, correct?
That is 1 year backdated to May of 2020. Right. So yes, it would expire, I believe, mid-May of 2021.
But that also includes the 19 because we had to purchase both, right?
Correct.
Okay. So since we need to do this right away because of the VPN, which is a huge issue, I would like to hear from my other council members if they are comfortable approving up to $6,000 at this point. So then we don't need another special meeting, and that would include that. Hopefully include all of that patchwork, quote unquote, proposal.
That's what I was leaning toward.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
So to be clear, if we approve the 6,000 to patch the existing stuff and it is patchable at that price, whoever the new IT vendor is, whether Starfish wins and keeps it, they'll presumably recommend something like the WatchGuard quote. Or if it's somebody else, unless they actually recommend keeping the old Fortinet stuff, we're going to pay now and then we're going to pay again next year, right?
Right, but we're not going to be paying a 3-year thing.
Well, we're not paying.
I want you, you need to have this VPN access. You need to have this. So I'm looking for the most cost-effective short-term solution, since we do have an RFP out there for someone to come in and give us a full evaluation of what our needs really are.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's cost effective though, because we're going to spend $6,000 on something we're probably going to throw away early next year versus buying something that's good for at least a year or could be good for 3 years.
We
Gosh
have,
knows, we've
in the
thrown
last,
enough money away already.
in the last 2 years, we've probably spent $40,000 on
Right.
vendors coming in, telling
you.
us that you need this, that, and whatever. And again,
Thank you.
Starfish has done an excellent job for us. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time that you're putting in, even in this meeting. And I had a problem with my own personal email, and right away I got a phone call back. I
Mhm.
have a lot of confidence in you, but the issue is we have this RFP, we've been going through the process, and to me, spending $5,000 right now, and even if we have to switch, I'd rather do that than spend 10.
I agree.
Okay, so just to make sure that we understand, you'd rather spend $5,000 now than 10. You'd rather spend $5,000 now and 10 later than 10 now.
You don't know that
Yeah,
her new company is going to want to use this information. We have no idea. We've had 3 vendors come in the last 3 years that have told us completely different things, and they've all been wrong.
mhm. And we keep shelling out big chunks of money.
Well, I don't know if they've all been wrong. I mean, we've got one of them right here, but
Oh, yeah, don't include us in that 3 count,
No.
please.
We're not including Starfish.
She
Okay.
prefaced it by saying that you were not.
and I don't know that the previous vendor, it wasn't the previous vendor that installed this. It was the first vendor. So
The point is, we're probably going to have to spend $100,000 on our actual new consultant and getting everything up to par, and $5,000 in the scheme of that is nothing. So we need the VPN, and I don't want to have to, wait for another proposal. I'd rather do an up to amount and get it working already.
my only other concern then is if we find it's a dead end, we've approved up to 6,000 and we don't have the option of the $9,100 quote that is in the packet, which is the alternative if the Fortinet option ends up being a dead end.
It didn't seem like, I would just ask maybe Adam, or I don't know if Adam, you would, it didn't sound like it was a dead end. It just
No,
sounded like an
I
option.
specifically said you wouldn't give us something that wasn't going to be functional and safe. And he said that absolutely not. This would work and this would be secure.
Mhm.
Correct, and that's why I know Pat's leaning back towards waiting on that official quote to make sure that they will reinstate it. I don't see why they won't, but until I have the part number and the approval to order it for your serial numbers, that's where I can't guarantee anything yet.
And
It seems like it would.
And that's my concern on this. It's like you're really not sure till you get the package and you look at it and see how well it works. But you got this package that the police are using, so that gives you a little bit more security than to throw $6,000 to find out you got a package that's not a good package, but you're using a package now with the police department that you do have a little bit of security with.
Well, I think we have security. I mean, he made it clear that we would be secure.
The other issue, though, as you'll recall, is you asked whether you could guarantee that the Fortinet option would solve the PCI compliance issues, and I believe Adam couldn't make that guarantee.
And that's my concern.
And that's, no fault of Adam's, but there are variables that are outside of their control. And
Would you
again,
inquire with the vendor to see whether or not they can guarantee that, Adam?
We could try to call the vendor and see what they will do, but it's one of those things. If it was under support, I get a support technician. They would tell me what it is. I will have to call sales, explain what we're trying to do. We want to know if it's going to be fixed, go through that. I can absolutely make that call. I don't pretend to have an idea of if I get somebody tomorrow or if I get somebody next week to make that guarantee.
Well, for me, the question, to your inquiry, Vice Mayor Weiss, is, I mean, the $9,000 I'm not leaning towards, unless we get something back from the vendor that says it's not going to be PCI compliant, or we, for some reason are not going to be able to work this solution for our purposes. And so I'm happy to do the up to amount if it would avoid us having to have another meeting. But frankly, I think it's an important issue and would be happy to meet again with both of the options presently on the table so that we can actually talk about what those two, options are, if we're comparing apples to apples or not. So.
I'm happy to meet also. I just hope that we can get 5 people.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to meet as well.
Yeah, I'll make myself available whenever it is.
I guess John and Sue, can we all try to make ourselves available?
Myself available.
Oh, we have
Yep, I'll try.
a CIC meeting Monday at 7. You want to have another special meeting Monday at 6?
Sure.
Not available Monday.
Monday, you said?
I said I'm not available Monday or Tuesday, but Wednesday I am.
Well, we need 5 people, so who's available Monday then at 6?
I'm available.
I believe I'm available.
I'm available.
Sue, are you available?
Yep, had my hand up. I'm available.
Oh, okay. So we're hoping we'll have the quotes on Monday then.
Absolutely. I will get on top of vendors again, let them know that now we are hard date time set, that we need to have that back by, and we need everything. One of the other differences that I guess have not mentioned yet is we are not certain that the subscription from Fortinet, which is the company that has the firewalls in place right now, if the quote that they provided us includes hardware failure. So that is something that we're going to look into as well. For example, if one of those firewalls were to go down, do we have to replace the entire unit? And is that out of pocket cost? We will hopefully have that information as well. Because we know the WatchGuard one, for example, is hardware and software. If that unit were to die, it's a phone call to them. They swap out that unit for a new one. We just want to make sure that you guys are covered should you decide to go with the Fortinet unit, that we have the same coverage. Should we have some sort of issue, that we don't have to come back and say, hey, we need more money for a firewall.
Is there any way that you can test the access points to see if they need to be replaced or not?
We can have yes, I can take a look at that. I don't know
Because
so
that-
much of a test, it's more of a compatibility verification, but yes.
Because that would make a difference in the price of the quote also.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, is there let's see, Luke, since I guess what we need is a motion to table
Yeah,
this
I would
agenda
table.
item to a special meeting to be set on Monday, November 23rd at 6 p.m.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, very good. We have a motion by Mrs. Blankfeld. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gould. Is there any discussion? All right, Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you for attending here this evening. We'll see you back here at 6 o'clock. Please just keep us updated with regard to what you find with the Fortinet quote. And as for everyone else, we'll see you back here at 6 o'clock on Monday.
All
Thank
right.
you for taking
Thank
time
you.
to- And
Well, thanks.
We need a motion
we need a
to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn. We need a motion to adjourn. So very good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs.
I'll
Weiss.
second.
Second by Mrs. Blankfeld. Mrs. Thomas, will you take the roll?
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you. Have a good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Pleasure meeting
Night.
everyone.
Thank you.